This video is sponsored by War Thunder. Ever wondered what it would be like to play a game that's kind of like Stardew Valley and Pokemon all smushed together? Well, in this video, I'll be playing my first 100 days of Moonstone Island, and I think you'll enjoy it just as much as I did. Okay, why is this guy's chicken house following me? Whee! Look at me go! Whee! Oh my god, what is that thing? And how do I get as far away from it as possible? If you do end up enjoying the video and you want to see more of Moonstone Island, then feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel to let me know. But without further ado, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made and is available now for free on PCs and consoles. You get to take command of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations, ranging from biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to the fighter jets and main battle tanks of today. If you're like me and love decorating or customizing, then you will love War Thunder's comprehensive customization system with countless camouflages, historical markings, and decorations for all types of vehicles, including community-created ones. You'll get to immerse yourself in the intense combat of War Thunder, where incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects place you right at the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. Join a worldwide community of over 70 million players in epic PvP battles today, and delve into the breathtaking experience that is War Thunder. With an unmatched wealth of high-quality content to discover, there's simply no game better suited for fans of military history. You can play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox by using the link in my pinned comment or the video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms. That includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium. It's available for a limited time only, so be quick. Thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video, but without further ado, let's dive right in. Our alchemist adventure began where we all wish to be, cloud watching on a patch of lush grass. It's here on our parents' island that we started to learn the basic ways of an alchemist. Talking to father, he taught me 2 ways of harvesting crops. I can either harvest them normally and collect the bounty for myself, or if I so wish, I can use a scythe to collect the seeds instead. I then learnt about the tool wheel and hoeing dirt, a classic farming sim job. I planted more seeds and used my newly acquired watering can to water them. So far so good, I'm nailing this whole taking care of myself thing. I then received my mother's medallion. I chose my starter spirit called Sheep, and it's here in this mini dimension that I'll be able to manage and look after my own spirits. Returning to the regular world, I was introduced to battling wild spirits. It's a basic concept once you get the hang of it, but I'll make it easy for you watching along at home. So you get 3 energy. You use energy to play cards. Bash cards get rid of armor, and you get rid of armor to make enemies more vulnerable to attacks and to stop them attacking for a round. The other cards are usually just damage cards. You can also use energy to heal your spirit if they get low on health too. And well, that's about all you have to know. Now we're all experts. Having finished up all my basic training with my dad, I met up with mum inside the house. She made me eat one of my harvested stone fruit to regain some energy. I also got to level up my sheep. I upgraded its speed, and every time you level up a spirit, you add a card to its deck. You can also feed your spirits because they too need to be taken care of. Mother then tasked me to spend a whole year away from home in order to complete my alchemist training. And that night, after a few fond words were exchanged between me and my parents, they sent me off into the night on my own broom. My parents' island was far behind me now, and I was ready to become the alchemist I was always destined to be. The wind on my journey was too strong to handle, however, and it knocked me off my broom, crash landing me onto a random island. In the dark, I had to search for my lost tools. I even found parts of my broken broomstick. In the middle of rounding up my items, I seemed to have hit my limit for the day, and I passed out in the fields. Thankfully, the field is not where I woke up the following day. Instead, I was greeted by someone called Osino. She had found the rest of my tools that I failed to find last night, and suggested I get myself set up nearby with my very own alchemist tent. It turns out that Osino here runs the tavern. She also asked a favor of me to get her some stone for a tavern basement upgrade. Look lady, I just got here, and not very gracefully may I add, but I agreed nonetheless. On the way out, I met Guyana, who works at the conservatory apparently. As I left the tavern, I got a letter dropped off to me from Mum, with a crafting recipe for a balloon attached to it, in case my broom broke and I needed to explore further out. Conveniently, it did break, so this is gonna be great. I also got a welcome letter from the Alchemist Guild, whose guidelines are a little far-fetched in my opinion, but I will try my best not to form an overthrowing army of spirits. Wait a minute. Does that mean it's possible? Anyway, if it is, that's for future Poxiel to find out. For now, I used my tools to clear out a bit of land close to where I carked it last night. In doing so, I accidentally found a mine. These appear once per island, and you can't get them back if you close them back over. But chests do spawn with some fun loot, so that's nice to know. I even fought my first true wild spirit down here. It wasn't looking too good for a bit, but I made sure work of the little creature. Returning to the surface, I ran around the top of the island and found a couple of treasure maps, all before stumbling my way into town where I met a couple more villagers. One of them was Farah. She immediately called me cute, and I like her already. I found out you can either talk, joke, or flirt with villagers, all having a certain chance of it gaining hearts, or kinda not working out. I also met Cleo, and I figured out how to give gifts. But it was getting late, and I didn't really feel like passing out in a field again, so I finally found a perfect place beside the lake for my tent to go, and tonight I got a wonderful night's rest in my very own bed. Waking up on day 3, I was immediately dropped off issue 1 of Osino's newsletter for people new to town, telling me to get to know the townsfolk. I also caught a little glimpse of the treasure maps I found. Looks like I'll have to do a bit of exploring to find whatever treasures they're hiding. While exploring in town, I saw in my journal that Farah wanted me to get her copper ore in return for a furnace recipe. So I ventured back down the mine I found yesterday to collect some. After leveling sheep up again, I headed out with my 10 copper ore to find Farah. In my search for her, I ran across Paolo. Paolo runs the local workshop, which I'm sure I'll be back to, but they weren't quite the person I was looking for. The general store was apparently closed today, which only left one more building to check, and yep, there she was. I sold Farah my hard-earned copper, and keeping her end of the bargain, I learned how to craft a furnace. Outside, I ran into Quill. Quill doesn't run any of the shops here on Moonstone Island, but he is an aspiring painter. I once again bumped into Osino and Rowan. Rowan runs the general store, but just not today. Just like another certain shopkeeper we know and love. Well, love. It's a stretch. To the south of town, I found what's known as a talisman gateway, but being a newbie alchemist, I was very hesitant to activate it. I thought it was going to teleport me to God knows where, so I just kind of left it alone for now. I continued following Osino's newsletter advice to meet more townsfolk. Zed here runs the science center. As I explore the outer islands and meet new spirits, I can turn in the research here to Zed. He also wanted me to tame a spirit for him, so I'll keep that in mind. And I also happened upon a new tool called the warp whistle. I must have looked a little goofy teleporting about 2 meters backwards. but I'm sure this will come in handy later on. Also, you can only warp once a day, so I'll have to use it sparingly. I traversed further on down to the beach and found Tobin, who runs the fishing shop. He immediately gave me the task to catch rare fish across distant lands, and look, I know I just got here, but give me a sec, please. From Tobin's shop, I purchased the fishing rod, and I settled on the pier for a while. The fishing minigame in Moonstone Island is a little different to Stardew, but I have to admit, it's a lot less stressful. On the way back home that evening, I popped into the conservatory run by Gianna and Ophelia. They tasked me to collect seeds from the outer islands. If I do, they can propagate them and they'll become available for me to purchase in bulk at the general store. So I added that on to my growing list of tasks. To round out a busy day, I made myself a cell crate. I imagine that it's pretty self-explanatory. Thanks to the mine expedition, I had enough stone to sell in the crate, and Osino was very thankful for her basement upgrade. And once the night had fallen, in the distance I saw a glowing piece of grass. What was hiding in that tuft of grass was a moonstone. You know, like the game name? Moonstones are a rare resource that will be used in a lot of crafting and upgrading tools later on. Fun fact, only one moonstone will spawn per island, but it has a chance to respawn if there's at least one tuft of grass on that island. You know, just in case you wanted to know. And I also made my first furnace. The social butterfly in me had worn off by the next day. I managed to talk to every single villager yesterday, and my social battery was in need of recharging. So down in the mine I went to cower away like the true introvert I am. I managed to find the final chest down here, and it dawned on me that this is what this little icon on the top left of my screen meant. And I put Sheep to work battling some wild spirits down here to get some experience under my belt. By the time the afternoon had rolled around, I was back topside again. I was compelled to keep exploring the east side of the island to see what was over here. I found a lighthouse, probably where Tobin lives, a whole spa. I'll come here when I get stressed about the real world cost of living. I'm never leaving. And I walked into my very first dungeon. First of all, who's this giant robot looking geezer? Second of all, you can fall off the side. Yeah, I might just leave this one alone for now. What I did find afterwards was a lookout on top of the mountain. You know, I could spend the 96 more remaining days here and just, you know, call the video there. But I better do something else pretty quickly because I'll be honest, I could stare at that forever. So instead I did some fishing. I managed to get my first achievement. I managed to get it for catching 2 boots back to back. I have some questions about the reality of fish accidentally swimming too far south and, I don't know, falling out of the water. But I don't think either of us want the answer to that. So instead we'll just jump to my 5th day on Moonstone Island. Last night I got to spend my first skill point I got for foraging, and I chose the Intimidating Presence perk, which makes spirits of a lower level run away from me. To start my day I watered a few flax flower and stone fruit seeds I'd been growing. I then crafted some fiber into cloth, which I used to craft a balloon. Back in town I felt daring enough to activate that talisman gateway. Thankfully it didn't teleport me, but it gave me the option of one of 3 talismans. Cleanse removes a card from a spirit's deck, Meditate upgrades a card, and Study adds a new card. I chose the Meditate talisman, but I didn't know that I needed to feed it to Sheep. Oh wait, no, sorry, I renamed it Hugo. I didn't know I had to feed it to Hugo just yet. But the ultimate question is, does cloth make good balloon material? Well, I asked myself that question right after jumping off the side of the island with the balloon in hand. What's the worst that could happen, am I right? After a while of just floating through the sky, I eventually landed on an outer island close by. As soon as I landed, I started foraging all of the goodies strewn about the island. I noticed that this island also had a gateway, but I wasn't too sure on the best way up there. A little while later, I had caught on to building bridges to help traverse the island, and I opened up another mine by accident. I eventually got across, but I would need more bridges to keep exploring. That was until I got absolutely jump scared by this walking house. Inside, I met Waldo, the magic man. He lives in a chicken house, and he's tasked me to repair his mind. From collecting 10 copper ore to repairing a chicken house dwelling magic man's mind, I swear these requests just keep on getting more ridiculous every time I'm given one. I would have to find these memory shards from dungeons, but I wasn't too keen on starting that adventure just yet, so I warped on home and fed Hugo that talisman, where I got to choose a card to upgrade, all before getting a much needed rest. As I woke up the following day, I mooched into town to chat with the townsfolk and to sell off my gemstones to Farah. I noticed that they're made to sell off for coins, so there was no use in hoarding them. Thinking back to when I glanced at the treasure maps I had, I noticed that one of them looked very similar to the island I had drifted across yesterday. So I took it with me along with some more bridges and floated back across the deep sky abyss. I knew where I was headed this time, so I made it without any trouble, and I got to work climbing to the top of the mountain. Once I had made it, I got to activate another gateway. I picked the study talisman this time and got to choose another card to add to Hugo's deck. On the way to the bottom, I accidentally ran into a brick house spirit. I started up a battle that I totally didn't mean to, and unfortunately, I got pummeled. Sadly, that meant I lost the rest of the day, and some of the morning on day 7. Luckily, the magic man and his traveling chicken house kept me safe overnight, and I was back on my feet soon after. I took my bruised ego down the mine shaft and fumbled around in the dark collecting resources for a while. I used the treasure map afterwards to find my first hidden chest, along with some goodies and an achievement, may I add. I got another Moonstone from it, which I guess redeems yesterday a little bit. I then warped home with my warp whistle. Look, I didn't want to push my luck. I chatted with a few villagers on the way home, and when I got back to my tent, I popped down the chest I dug up for an additional storage. As the evening glow fell over the island, I found myself clearing out trees and rocks for wood and stone, and munching on some stone fruit whenever my energy would dip. I started to figure out how furnaces work in this game too. It takes 3 ore and 1 coal to make a bar of whatever you're smelting. I was inspecting the map later that night and noticed there was a gateway on the northern part of Moonstone Island, so I took off before it got too late to bridge my way over, and I got myself another talisman. The first thing I took care of this morning was harvesting my stone fruit and flax flowers. Yes, there were only 6 crops to harvest, but believe it or not, I'm not trying to min-max like I do with Stardew. I'm going for cozy chill vibes on this series. Over in town, I popped into the general store to see what Rowan had for sale. Well, it was a little underwhelming, I'll admit, but I have to remember the stock will look much better when I sell seeds to the conservatory, so I left it there for now. Over at the blacksmith, I found Farah selling mostly tool upgrades, which will all come in good time, I'm sure. I circled up to the conservatory to see what the ladies over there sell. A lot of plants, it seems. Yeah, I should have known, but I was craving some adventure, and what a better way to kick that craving than with an expedition through our very first dungeon. Picking up my very first memory shard after destroying my first guardian wasn't the only reward for my feat today. I got to relish in a chest full of loot, and I activated my first Ando tree. These trees at the end of dungeons permanently increase stamina when activated, and with that I knocked off dungeon number 1 out of 30. But one at a time, people, one at a time. I went back in to collect the final chest that I'd missed, and I was out of there by the late afternoon. The boss chest made for a wonderful storage edition, by the way. Also, yes, I'm not selling my gemstones because I forgot I literally have a sell crate outside. I had it in my head that I needed to sell them to Farah. I can already see you in the comments, don't even worry about it. Save it for later, I make way worse mistakes later on. Oh, hey. You seem to have caught me at a bad time. Yeah, just give me a sec. Okay, that's better. I'm back on the island of my first downfall to finish exploring the mine. I not only wanted to collect the loot chests in here, but I needed the resources too. Copper, iron, stone, coal, I'll take it all. Hugo even got a few fights in here and there to boost his ego. We're both a little bit embarrassed from the loss we took the other day. From those fights, I actually got a couple of earth spirit eggs, which makes me think we're gonna learn how to raise our own spirits soon. Alas, I kept on collecting resources, which was what I did for most of the day. By the time I warped back home, it was already dark. I had just enough time to chat in passing and smelt some ores in my furnaces. Not to mention that overnight, I spent 2 skill points. One in foraging, where I unlocked the Scallywag perk, giving me a 5% chance to catch treasure chests when fishing, and the Great Listener perk in the social category, which gains me relationship points 5% faster. We are now 10 days into our journey through Moonstone Island, and my goodness people, we are just getting started. Today began waiting for Farah to show up for work. The ores I smelted last night were used on a reinforced hammer upgrade. And did I sell my gemstones? No, I forgot to bring them. But I did run home to grab more copper bars to run all the way back and get a reinforced axe. Anywho, I took some time to scythe away at some grass above my home to collect some fiber. I used the fiber to craft cloth, and the cloth I used to craft a calendar. I popped that bad boy right next to my bed so I could check in on it every morning to make sure that I don't forget anyone's birthday. Now I literally have no excuse. The front of my home was undoubtedly looking very boring, so I tried to remedy this with a few wooden paths. You can take the decorator away from Stardew, but he'll always find a way back. Following this, I made a decoration station. No, I'm not making that up, it's just like it was meant to be. However, decorating wouldn't get me very far on my quest to become a great alchemist. What will is a sketchy balloon ride back to the outer islands. I happened across a wild moonstone, and suddenly it started raining sparkles. This is what's called a psychic storm, which spawns psychic type spirits and special crops. But I didn't know that at the time, and I just thought it was gonna spawn loads of moonstones or something. I collected these magic mushrooms, no, not that kind, and when I ran into spirits, I decided to try and tame them rather than fight them. Zed had asked me to, and it feels less savage taming them than fighting them. Also, Waldo showed up in the middle of all of this, and I got to hand over the first of many memory shards. I actually tamed a couple of spirits called Beardinis, so I kept one for myself at the medallion. And now I have 2 spirits! One crafting item that really caught my eye this morning was something called the Moonstone Enchanter. And luckily I had everything I needed to craft it. I chucked it outside, but I'm excited to see what magical things I'll be able to craft with it. For now, I popped down to Zed at the Science Center to turn in my spirit research. I like that research includes seeing, banishing, and taming spirits. Plus I get paid for it. And here at the center I can access the spirit storage, which is where tame spirits will go. Afterwards I detoured home to grab a few iron bars, which I took back down to sell off to Farah. This was actually a quest, because in return I got the anvil crafting recipe. I immediately went home and crafted one because I'm nosy and I want to know what it's for. It's actually for crafting charms, which I have no idea why I need them, but the descriptions make me think they're for more dangerous outer islands. Speaking of outer islands, I went back out to knock off another dungeon. It was really the only thing left to do on that island. On top of another successful dungeon run, I unlocked 2 more perks overnight. The trader perk on the combat tree, which gives me a 10% chance to upgrade cards when adding them to my deck, and the weak link perk in the archaeology tree. Dungeon bosses start with 2 less armor. Yeah, I did sneak off with the boss chest yesterday. They look cool, okay? I got a letter from Zed this morning saying thanks for taming a psychic spirit. In return, I got a Moonstone detector, which is pretty cool. He also sent a letter containing the crafting recipes for a spirit barn, a spirit nest, and a spirit stall. See, I had a feeling those eggs were meant for something. So I spent the morning gathering everything I needed to start my spirit farming adventure. Eventually, I situated the barn across from my tent for ease of access, and I'll just skip over this part. Oh, what is it you ask? Well, it's just me trying to figure out why my eggs don't want to be placed in the barn. It turns out you needed nests. The power of editing, cutting out Poxiel's stupid moments since 2022. What a massive upgrade it was when I crafted my, technically second broomstick. No longer will I have to hold on to balloons for dear life to traverse the outer islands. I've got a broom now! I used it to fly over to the island south of Moonstone Island, where I handed over my second memory shard to our favorite chicken-themed walking house inhabitant Waldo. It actually turns out he has a shop with talismans and cards, so that's good to know he provides a helpful service. For the second day in a row, reading a letter from Zed was how I began my day. He wants me to raise all types of spirits and bring him their poop. Or their valuable resources, if you will. Hey, do you reckon I could get paid for donating my valuable resource? Down at the blacksmith, Farah let me upgrade my scythe, hoe, and watering can with the copper and coins I'd collected thus far. Someone please tell Clint I way prefer Farah as a blacksmith. With access to a broom now, I yearn to explore more of the outer islands, and about a 5-second flight west of the science center is where my wish came true. You'll see the Moonstone detector working on this island. It's the blue ring, because there's one hiding somewhere. Where it is, we won't know until it starts glowing at night. So to kill some time, I went around taming more earth spirits. I actually popped another achievement for taming 10 in total. I took some heavy blows trying to fight a boss spirit. Fun fact, you can't tame boss spirits. So I had no choice but to battle. But Hugo and Beardini did get some level ups, and I got another talisman to feed to my Beardini. I tried my hand at some more fishing while waiting for nightfall. I caught a few new fish actually, which was very exciting. I'm not sure why, but I attempted to fly from this island to the other one, and oh boy did I get so close. Second time's a charm though. It turns out I just wanted to fish some more. My priorities are clear it seems, probably not in the right order. I should have stayed on the other island to collect the Moonstone, but how well can you blame a guy for wanting to fish away his troubles? On day 14, I became the island's very first matchmaker. For spirits and people, that is. Paolo was to be my first matchmaker client, and they wanted an earth spirit with the name Oak in it. I added that to my list of journal tasks and took off on a short broom ride to the outer islands. I opened up another mine here and spent the day plundering. Highlights included a couple of loot chests, a lot of resources to take back home with me, the Blazed achievement for collecting 420 stone, and I tamed a couple of spirits too. You'll be happy to know I'm making good use of my cell crate now, and I put my furnaces to work smelting all the goodies I pillaged today. Then I rounded out the day down on the pier, catching fish before they fall off the map. Overnight I unlocked the Plunderer perk, which increased my chances of fishing up treasure chests to 10%. I have a mailbox, by the way. I can't remember when I made that, but it's here, and it makes it super easy to access my mail. And Mum decided to mail me a letter telling me her and Dad have booked a break to the city to take some pottery classes. Hold on, is the city also floating? Are there like high rises up in the sky? Wouldn't that make them space rises or something because they're so tall? I have so many questions. On my flight through the sky this morning, I happened upon another of the outer islands, but for some reason this one seemed different. Oh yeah, this one is certainly different. Upon reaching the giant tree, I was greeted by none other than Mr. Magic Man. He explained to me that this is the Spring Temple, an ancient place that used to be a site of worship. The people from the old kingdom would come here to leave offerings for the spirits inside. However, as time went on, people forgot and the spirits became angry. So it's my task to make my way through the temple to eventually collect something called the Earth Seal. Piece of cake, right? The first two offerings, a stone fruit and a cattail, I already had on me. And into the temple I went. Clearly the only way onward was to battle my way past. I'm not gonna lie, that silly little log had no idea what was coming. Awaiting me on the other side was a brand new tool called the Alchemist's Wand. It grows crops at the cost of stamina, but I had another offering table in front of me and this one required some ingots. I had to quickly fly back home to grab a couple, but I was back before you could say bada bing bada boom. I like pizza. I don't know why I decided to go anyway. The temple accepted my offering and I used my Alchemist's Wand to grow the ladder plant up to the next stage. Another battle was waiting for me up there and it was a long fight because holy hell, look at how much health he has. But I got the job done and we were moving on. The loot chest dropped a bunch of goodies, but unfortunately we had to call it there at the Spring Temple for now because the final offering required clay and moonstone. Clay I don't have quite just yet, so I'd have to return later. Happy with the progress I had made, I flew home in the rain and spent the rest of the day collecting some coin from Zed for the research I'd done. Plopping down another earth spirit egg in the spirit barn, replanting tree saplings from my tree chopping tirade, chatting to the townsfolk, and fishing. Naturally. After a big day of adventure yesterday, I had a few tasks close to home to take care of the next morning. I made a cookbook for myself, all credit to Osino for providing the crafting recipe and sending it to me, and my first 4 earth eggs had hatched. Don't ask why I leveled them all up, I thought I had to, I definitely did not have to. All before taking off into the sky on my trusty broomstick. I landed on uncharted territory after a quick flight and got to exploring. This island was one big twisty piece of land that had a gateway on it, which I, of course, activated for a talisman. And I battled 2 Okins. Come to think of it, the other treasure map I had back at home looked exactly like the island I just explored. Well, would you look at that. Having warped back home with another treasure map done and dusted, I spent the night in the spa with Paolo. Well, hold on a minute, how did we get here? Upon waking up the next day, I read a letter from Zed congratulating me on parenthood. In the letter, he gave me the crafting recipe for a moongrass spirit stall. Apparently, these stalls automatically feed your spirits, so I may have to invest in some of these soon. For now, I headed back to the Spring Temple because one of my earth spirits had dropped clay. Only I got there and I forgot the Moonstone. But hey, we did it! Wow, look at me go! Waiting at the top of the temple was the Wildwood boss, the last spirit standing in the way of the Earth Seal. I'll level with ya, I got absolutely cooked in this fight. I mean, it respawns long logs for crying out loud.
Hi, how are you?
How can I compete with that? However, I managed to play a retreat card just in time and I got the heck out of there. I'll be back though, don't you worry. Instead, I refocused myself on exploring more of the outer islands. Come on, just a little closer. Ah, damn it. I found a better takeoff point this time and come on, just a little bit closer. Third time's a charm though, here we go. Come on. Hey, there we go. My first beach-themed island had a lot of crops to collect from it, not to mention a regenerative pool nearby, a treasure map, and I found a moonstone, completely by accident. While I was here, I took it upon myself to tame some water-type spirits. I thought I might as well with the abundance of flax flowers I had. This island also had a dungeon, but I will save that for another day. Instead, I took a I'm just gonna call it a worm. I took a worm from the spirit barn and added it to my medallion, because I want 3 spirits to battle with. Well, today's another day, so I guess that meets all my criteria to go dungeon diving. However, before I did, I got distracted playing around with ancient warp totems. This one linked to another water island close by. Anyway, sorry, back to business. My third dungeon run concluded quite late that night. I had just enough time to return home, sort out my loot, and head to bed, where I unlocked the One Step Ahead perk. This draws an additional card at the start of combat. Before I knew it, it was already day 19. I found another worm hatched in the spirit barn before taking off on my broom across the deep blue sky. I warped over to the other water island I happened across yesterday to do some pillaging of crops and forage, all while taming spirits on the side. I have to say my spirits have been climbing in levels too. This island didn't have a dungeon, but it did have a gateway, which I am not complaining about. Plus I scored 2 more treasure maps. Magic Man must have caught on to where I was because his chicken house appeared, which was great timing because I had another memory shard to give him. I even gave him a bit of business and purchased a meditate talisman from him. You gotta support local, am I right? I continued flying north onto another water island. This one had more crops to collect and ended up looking a bit like a starfish. I got into a very heated battle with a Claudio. There was another dungeon here, but it was inaccessible to me at this point, so I left it for now, which meant I was back home for the evening. I filled my time nesting a couple of water eggs I'd come across while taming spirits, and being kinda disappointed that no one was open at such a reasonable hour. Maybe it was me who expected too much of Zed, but he was back in business the next morning. I turned in my research for a hefty pile of coins. I then circled to Paolo at the workshop, where I noticed I can get house extensions. Hey, I want a bigger house. After a bit of wood chopping, I returned to the workshop and got the north wing upgrade. I even got an achievement for it. What took up the rest of the day was exploring a new Earth island. This one was loaded with a gateway, regeneration pool, crops, and a dungeon. It was after this dungeon that I realized the diversity these dungeons have from one another. Some have puzzles to solve, some require battles to win, some need problem solving to find a way to the end, and most just require all 3. Which is why I love the dungeons in this game. Before I can round off the day, I had a lot of skill points to spend overnight. I got the Spirit Bond perk, spirits stay 1 day longer if they're not fed, the Energy Boost perk, you start combat with 1 extra energy, the Rock Smack perk, 10% chance to destroy adjacent rocks and mines, and finally the Caring Person perk, gain relationship points 10% faster. How good is it that my house is already upgraded? Somebody tell Robin that Paolo is my favorite carpenter. I got a letter from our resident fisherman Tobin asking for a spirit match with a spirit that has a snorkel. I knew I had one in the spirit storage, but seeing Zed walk towards me as I went to go and check answered my "I wonder if Zed is working today" question. So I put that on hold and turned to utilizing my house upgrade. Along with the cookbook, I crafted a preparation station and a stove, which essentially turned this room into my new kitchen. Using all 3, I was able to prepare the ingredients, follow the ingredients list, and cook a birthday cake in the oven. Alchemist by day, baker by night. Osano ended up getting the cake. It wasn't for her birthday, but I'm sure she didn't mind. Actually, it's funny because I was trying to complete a quest. Turns out I had to sell it to her at the tavern, not just give it to her. I made another one. I'll hold on to this one until she's working again. I retired that night to the water islands to finish the day fishing. I even reeled up my first treasure chest. Well, bag, treasure bag, thing, chest, loot, pack, thing. You get what I mean.
Oh, brother!
I figured out if you spam the warp whistle animation, it looks like you're having a little boogie. How's your morning going? Because mine is going great. I thought I'd better do something productive, so I grabbed a few concoctions I'd gathered from my adventures, and hyped myself up for round 2 against Wildwood, the Earth Temple's final boss spirit. But this time, my spirits were leveled much higher, and I wasn't here to play any games. With wildwood down and out for the count, I obtained the first of 4 seals, the Earth Seal. The magic man appeared and blabbered on a bit. I think he was trying to say well done. 1 temple down, 3 left to go. As for the rest of the day, I flew southward of the water islands and found another Earth island. The only highlights were finding a Moonstone and revealing a hidden treasure chest, thanks to one of my treasure maps. A couple of water spirits had hatched in my spirit barn the following day. Yes, I'm still leveling them up, but give me a break, I didn't know any better. I then wandered around in the rain for a while. I was on the lookout for Quill because it was his birthday today. I took a trip up the mountain to finally find him, and I gave him a furnace. I'll admit it, I looked it up on the wiki, but I wanted to give out loved gifts, okay? Leave me alone. I went back to island hopping after this. I stumbled across my first poison island, but I left pretty quickly because I didn't fancy risking my life in the name of exploration just yet. I also came across this island that looked like a turtle. Very cool. It all ended that night when I went to sleep and spent a skill point on the beginner spirit mancer perk. This will let me keep spirits up to level 10. Moving right along to day 24, I got straight to chopping down trees the minute I woke up. Last night I had spied a gadget that I wanted to get my hands on ASAP, and the wood appeared with 3 moonstone ingots I melted last night and a few iron bars. I got to craft myself the glider, and this was the best decision I ever made. Whee! Look at me go! Whee! Before I could truly test the glider out, I had to kill some time waiting for the tavern to open, because it was finally time to sell Osino that cake I'd been holding on to for the last few days. She was stoked at my creation, and told me she'd be passing on other villagers' family recipes for me to cook in the future. Told ya? Alchemist by day, baker by night. I used the glider to continue scouting uncharted outer islands. I found one close by that resembled a shield, and just to the left of that one was another Earth island that took the shape of an X. I'm surprised I didn't see Elon over there. The islands held nothing too out of the ordinary, however the X-shaped island did have a warp totem, and when I warped to its sister totem, I almost got shocked out of existence. So there's electric islands out there, and that totally doesn't freak me out at all. I'll be the first to admit day 25 did not last very long. You see, I island hopped onto a poison island, and unbeknown to me at the time, this bar around the minimap actually represents the difficulty of that island. The further along the bar, the higher the level of spirits. So I assumed this island was pretty safe. Oh, how I was wrong. I managed to dig up a treasure chest I'd been following on a map.
Why are you running?
Just before getting ambushed by a shrubbin. Having woken up in the Magic Man's chicken house, I glided away from that place as fast as I could, which placed me on a much nicer water island soon afterwards. You see, this is much nicer. Let me just take this innocent warp totem and see where this puts me on the map. Oh my god, I'm burning to a crisp. Okay, go back. So, there's fire islands out there, and that doesn't totally freak me out at all. Good thing I could cool off my burning eyebrows with another refreshing flight through the sky. It was while I was flying that I happened across another temple. According to Waldo, this was the Summer Temple. It was the same story as last time. Restless souls go unappeased, Old Kingdom forgot them. It was a case of no more Mr. Nice Guy. But because this was the Summer Temple, I'd obviously have to come back in the new season. So I left it for now and filled my time seeking out new islands. Last night I had run out of time to explore a dungeon I had discovered on an island close to the Summer Temple. But hey, I've got all the time in the world today. Believe it or not, the 28th marks the final day of spring, and the first thing I woke up to was a letter from Waldo, asking the matchmaker to pair him with a fishbow spirit. It was also Guyana's birthday, and I gave her a mandrake plant which I had picked up while scurrying from the poisoned island a couple of days ago. I made the decision today that I wanted to freshen up my spirit barn with some upgraded stalls. That way, with the Moonstone grass stalls, I wouldn't have to worry about feeding the spirits I keep here. And because I gave the barn a fresh start over, I had to go and catch more spirits to fill the stalls. Now, did I let the other ones go? Yes, I did. Why not just send them to the spirit storage with Z? Because I'm a dumb, stupid little guy. But it did mean I got to go out and tame some new spirits, so I didn't mind. While I was here, I even found another buried treasure while following a map, so I guess it was worthwhile in the end. But with that, spring was at its end, and our first season on Moonstone Island was complete. Now it's time to get your flip-flops on and blow up your beach balls, because we are heading into summer. On the first day of summer, a letter arrived for me from my mother. She wanted to teach me the alchemist art of brewing concoctions. I was tasked to sell one I had already found first. Instead, I sold the potion. Not quite the same, I assumed it was fine. I actually didn't know the difference. But what a great start to the new season, eh? I took some time afterwards to scavenge the island for new summer crops strewn about the place, like moss balls, pinwheel flowers, popsa plants, and beach peaches. However, I still had my spirit barn refresh still on my mind, and in between collecting crops from nearby water islands, I was taming water spirits to add to my barn, which meant when I got home that evening I had my first 5 water spirits. I'm hoping to have 5 of each type of spirit, and praying there's exactly 8 types because that would truly be pleasing to me. The Snorko I actually took with me because I knew a certain someone who would love to have one. Playing matchmaker actually is quite fun. To round out the day, I went on a bit of a Moonstone hunt. If I wanted more stalls, I'd be needing more Moonstone. I actually got the So Sweepy achievement as I went to bed that night, along with the Intermediate Cartomancer perk, increasing the chance of rare cards appearing during a level up. I started the next morning at the conservatory. I had harvested a few seeds from the lands I'd found so far and decided now would be a good a time as ever to donate them. Only 2 counted, and they were the magic mushroom seeds and the yarrow seeds from the psychic storms. Turns out the rest are already available. Ah well, you live and you learn, I guess. I followed this with gathering more materials to expand the barn with Moonstone grass stalls. Opposite the water spirits will be the earth spirits, and when I was investigating the ones I had in storage, that's when I saw the Oaken. I got it to follow me all the way to the workshop where I handed over to Paolo, and they were chuffed with their new spirit. Makes sense because Paolo is a woodworker. As I was on my way off the island, I noticed the gateway I once activated could be activated again, and it occurred to me there and then that they reset with the seasons, and I'm a big fan of that mechanic actually. I can see me using this in the future. Later on, a psychic storm hit the island I was on, which allowed me to harvest some new crops as well as tame a few more spirits. And to top it all off, I got the nice person perk. I now gain relationship points 15% faster. My main task on day 31 was getting Waldo the spirit he wanted, which was a fishbow. Trying to find him, however, is the hard part. Trying to get him to appear left me with more time to activate gateways and tame an earth spirit for the barn. Eventually his chicken house appeared, and he was very pleased to have a friend to accompany him on his journey. So pleased in fact that he let me take a talisman free of charge, and when I did take one, I got the On the House achievement. As the evening drew on, I glided around activating the gateways I had once previously located for talismans, and I managed to tame the final 2 earth spirits for the barn. Finally, I unlocked the fast talker perk, allowing me to talk to villagers 1 extra time per day. You'll now see my barn has 5 water spirits and 5 earth spirits now that drop sea glass and clay respectively, and the 1 psychic type that drops, poops dream drops. I wish I pooped dream drops. I also forgot to mention this until now, I named my Beardini Gandalf. Just thought you should know because I think it's funny. I was here in the medallion feeding all the talismans to my spirits, and now that they've been fed and upgraded, it was time to take on that dungeon I had found yesterday. A thrilling day of dungeon crawling was topped off by spending a skill point. I unlocked the Spirit Eggs perk, increasing my chances of finding Spirit Eggs after combat. Day 33 began picking up poop. It is special poop and it is valuable. It's still a bit weird though. My quest for poop was not deferred though. I made even more Moonstone grass dolls at the Moonstone Enchanter, ready to house another lot of spirits. I did get a little distracted as my attention turned to the Summer Temple. I made the first offerings and I was deemed worthy enough to enter the temple. The Summer Temple was actually quite a sight to behold. The only way to the top began with a battle, and I made short work of it. On the other side, I picked up a new alchemist tool, the flippers. These bad boys let me traverse water and even let me swim up waterfalls. I went to test them out in the water, and I'll give you a fair warning, this is a tough watch. You get to see me struggle, wondering why I won't ascend to the next level when I haven't made an offering yet. Genuinely, I was so excited by the flippers, I forgot the basic mechanics of a temple. I eventually caught on though, don't worry. So back at home, I dropped a concoction into the cell crate. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that, which seemed to work better than a potion a few days ago. I actually progressed with the quest. I then caught myself a jewelfish and crafted a lantern, because those are the two items I needed to proceed in the temple. Now I can swim up the waterfall. Stupid game making me think I'm all stupid and stuff. All I had to do was make an offering on the spirits. Oh, I'm the spirits and I need material things. Anyway, I quickly took care of another battle against some fierce water spirits. I made another offering of one moonstone and a piece of sea glass, and we were facing the final boss of the Summer Temple, Titan. Titan put up a defiant fight, the regen make it hard to whittle its health down, but it was no match for my Avenger-like trio of spirits. And after a hard day's work, we acquired ourselves the Water Seal. And overnight I got the Transformer perk, which is a 20% chance to upgrade a card when adding it to a deck. And the Beginner Angler perk, more chance to catch silver quality fish. Waking up the next day, I had a letter from my mother waiting for me. Apparently the concoction smashed in the mail, but I did get the crafting recipe for an alchemy lab, which sounds like something I can get behind. I spent all morning gathering the materials to get a West Wing upgrade from Paolo at the workshop. Then to kill time, I went on a Moonstone hunt. This is hard to admit, but I stayed out all night and I got only one. Not that I cared anyway, because my house had a new room. A letter also arrived from Guyana asking me to match them with the right poison spirit, but I put that to the back of my mind for now because I got to make my handy dandy alchemy lab that I set up in my brand new room. The more perceptive of you would have noticed this little potion I've been holding on to for a while now, and I thought today would be the perfect time to use it. This electric resistance potion makes me immune to the effects of electric islands, and I had the perfect island scoped out to tame some electric type spirits. Not to mention the new crops I got to harvest and scythe for seeds. Waldo made a guest appearance today. I got to hand over another of his memory shards. I then went gliding to find more electric islands and landed on one that even the game was like, hold up there buddy, you ain't ready for this just yet. So I heeded my warning and I glided away. By the next morning, the effects of the potion were gone, but I was pretty chuffed with how well I did yesterday. I know this because I was able to move 4 electric type spirits into the spirit barn, and I nested an egg next to the others to hatch the final one in a few days. Following this, I made a tough decision, and that was to retire my worm. It had done me well up until this point, but I felt like I needed a bit of a spark in the lineup, and I knew Kapakabi would be the spirit to do so. That afternoon I took off into the sky to settle on a poison island for a while. I replicated my methods from yesterday, picking new crops, harvesting their seeds, all the while taming low-level poison spirits. The day then wrapped up after collecting some moonstones from the islands around before heading home for the night. More moonstone grass stalls were added to the spirit barn this morning. I think you can see where this is going. But first, I had the perfect spirit for Guyana, a poison spirit with her hairstyle. That would, of course, be the emo shroom, and gosh, they absolutely loved it. I did move a handful of poison spirits to the barn, in case you were wondering. As a matter of fact, most of today was spent down in another dungeon. Having ticked off dungeon number 7, I sorted my loot when I got home that night and unlocked the Ando Acolyte perk, which grants me more stamina every time I activate a tree. It's day 38 now, and my mother has requested for me to make a specific concoction for my dad. Now is as good a time as any to explain that all of these crops I've been picking from the islands actually have different attributes, such as tame, health, power, vitality, XP, and stamina. These can either be positive or negative values too, and when you combine 2 crops with ash made from smelting wood and let it drip into an empty glass bottle, then you will get a concoction. This whole alchemy stuff is a breeze. And after picking up some very valuable poop from the spirit barn, this particular concoction my mother had asked for was done, which I shipped away in the cell crate. Over in town I was chatting with Osino when she told me about a couple of recipes Cleo and Guyana wanted me to figure out. I'll get right on that, I promise, I won't forget. In fact, that's immediately what happened. I got preoccupied with the possibility of making charms, so much so that I spent the night moonstone hunting. My mother had written back to me the next day. She sent a recipe for a cauldron in return for my concoction for dad. I'm assuming this is where I'll be able to make potions. But like the cute little goldfish I am, I forgot to make it, because I was off to tame another dungeon. I wrapped up this one relatively quickly, which gave me a bit of time to search for moonstones in the nightfall, all before rounding off the day unlocking the Novice Spiritmancer perk, allowing me to keep tame spirits up to level 20. I would like to preface that most days from now on will begin with the collection of valuable spirit excrement, just so I don't have to say I collected poop every day for the next 60 days. Anywho, it was back to dungeon diving today. This time I tackled another electric island dungeon I came across a few days ago. Once again, I had it wrapped up by the afternoon, which left me with time to smelt some moonstone for the charm I still haven't stopped thinking about, exploring some fire islands a bit further out, clearly someone was feeling brave, and handing over a piece of memory shard to Waldo when he appeared later that night. Today was tied up in a neat bow when I unlocked the Peaceful Presence perk. This gives me an increased 50% chance to successfully flee in combat. On the 13th day of summer, I started my day swapping out an arm bot for a bark bite, simply because I wanted all 5 spirits in my spirit barn to be different. Now with the important tasks out of the way, I decided to try my luck taming some fire spirits to further my spirit raising efforts. I glided out to a far out fire island, and clearly I still didn't know about the difficulty ring because that thing was glowing red. So you can imagine, I got absolutely walloped. However, I did manage to tame a single fire spirit before I got sent to the next day, so at least I didn't leave empty-handed. When I got back home, I made one Moonstone stall for it to call home. The science center was unfortunately closed today, so I had to kill some time chatting to villagers and crafting my very first charm. That's right, I was able to make the Moonstone charm of electric resistance, which makes me completely immune to electric islands. I even took it for a test run on some of the outer islands that night while I collected moonstones. I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is that Zed was working today. The bad news was I didn't quite have the perks just yet to house such a high level fire spirit, and that also included my medallion as well. While I was there, I did match Zed with an electric type spirit, which he was pretty thankful for, but I did walk away from the science center without the fire spirit, and I should note a change in roster. I swapped out my Kabakabi for a Cumulo, only because it was a slightly higher leveled spirit. Into the afternoon, I used my time following 2 treasure maps, which led me to 2 buried treasure chests. Oh, and I finally made that cauldron. I was right, by the way, the cauldron is where I can brew potions. I used it to brew an abundance potion, and I sold that off in my cell crate for Mother. Through the dark of night, I popped down into a mine on the turtle-shaped island to grab some resources, and a little bit of loot, of course. Time seemed to have slipped away from me a bit because it was on my walk home that I passed out in the middle of town. Not to worry, I got to unlock the Dungeon Dasher perk, which lets me run faster in dungeons, and the Generous perk, which lets me give villagers 1 extra gift per week. I awoke to a letter from Mother on day 44. Apparently the potion made a wonderful birthday gift, and she attached Father's compost bin crafting recipe for me. To be honest, not too much happened today. I added 4 more Moonstone grass stalls to the barn, I purchased a beer from Osino at the tavern, and then gave it to her as a birthday gift. And at the science center, I filled the stalls I installed with psychic type spirits. I have to say the barn is already close to being filled, and I kinda just hung out at home for a while. So I think it would be best if we moved on to the next day then. I'd gone quite a while now without dungeon exploring, but there was one in particular that I had my eye on. I thought it would be worth another attempt. I was just so determined to wrap this dungeon up. But once again, the Guardian and his cronies bested me yet again with their poisonous onslaught. I didn't fancy losing another day to that dungeon, and Waldo was probably sick of rescuing me, but I had a plan. And that plan involved crafting a mirror of introspection. You see, I wanted to rearrange my perk trees to allow the fire spirit to join my ranks. How was I to do that? Well, I'm not too sure yet, but I did know one thing. I was low on Moonstone, so I went searching for some in the dead of night. The next day, I was back out on the glider looking for my next dungeon. Since falling short the last run, I had a craving to right the wrong, and I found my next dungeon on a little island just past the inner rings. Oh yeah, now that is how you make up for it. I ventured across a few new islands close by since I had the time to. I came across Waldo's chicken house and I was able to hand over another memory shard. The mirror was starting to resemble more of a mirror with every shard that I returned to him. It was overnight I got the Tame Pro perk and an idea started to form in my head. However, when I woke up this morning, I had a letter from Osino to match her with a Kapakabi, and a letter from Waldo, who had sent me a warp whistle totem as a gift of gratitude for freeing the Dungeon of Guardians. Which is just so lovely. I pretty much spend the whole day gliding around the outer islands, exploring new and exciting lands, collecting moonstones, and discovering islands that maybe I shouldn't be exploring just yet. I was also clearing a lot of the map as I went. If you haven't noticed, the map appears as you discover it, which is fun, but I find it so hard just to leave a piece of map covered, so it's so hard not to just leave it. I must uncover it all. It's day 50! The first order of business for such a monumental day was to catch a fish. It was Tobin's birthday, and are we really surprised he likes fish? The second order of business was taking a Kapakabi from storage and giving it over to Osino. Now she has her very own spirit. And the third order of business, well, now that was another dungeon. I made a smart decision halfway through this run. I warped out of there, because after so much battling I'd run short of healing food for my spirits, and I didn't mind coming back to finish the job later on. Overnight I had some skill points to unlock, one of which was the Expert Cartomancer perk, increasing my chances of secret cards appearing during a level up, and Dungeon Master, spirits gain 10% more XP in dungeons. By the next day, however, I had the crops and confidence to go back and finish the job. With another dungeon ticked off, I had the whole afternoon to return the memory shard to Waldo, and the evening to collect wood from chopping trees down. The wood I used alongside iron and moonstone bars and some sea glass to build myself a greenhouse. I was quite excited to have a greenhouse because it would let me grow crops from any season, and these sprinklers will water any crops that I plant. I had the clever idea to sell yarrow seeds to the conservatory so that the seeds would become available to purchase. Yarrow is a crop that heals 30 HP. Perfect for bruised up spirits in battle. The only catch is I'd have to wait till tomorrow for the seeds to be ready for purchase. In the meantime, I went gliding around the outer islands and revealed a few more floating islands of the outer rings. Thank goodness it's tomorrow already. That meant the yarrow seeds were propagated and ready to purchase. I popped into the general store and bought 32 yarrow seeds from Rowan, along with 32 healing fertilizer. This fertilizer is going to boost the healing stats of the crop I plant with it, ultimately making the yarrow plants I grow more effective in battle. With them planted, the waiting game begins. So to occupy myself, I picked poop. Yes, I'm still doing that, I wasn't lying. And I scoured the map for a piece of undiscovered sky. I found it in the northeast and I started exploring. Some highlights: I happened upon the poison-themed Fall Temple, and Waldo tasked me to get the poison seal. Still being summer, it made it impossible to enter at the current time, so I continued on. I came across a couple of small border islands, one of which housed another dungeon. And let's be honest here, I just couldn't help myself. With the greenhouse on the island, I'm now able to add check on crops to my list of morning chores. The only other one being poop collection. I did a cool glider trick to reach the entrance of this water island dungeon. Anyway, this one was pretty low on the difficulty scale, so I had a little fun with this one. Once I was back out in the cool air, I took a warp totem and found myself in front of a massive maze. In fear of getting lost, I didn't stay for long, but I'm keen to come back and see how lost I can really get. Day 55 was another day spent on the old glider. I needed to keep exploring in order to find more dungeon and progress on, so that's what I did. I now had a fun way to find moonstones in the day now. You'll notice the prompt to collect will flash when you run over it, giving away where it is. I also found out you can spam the spacebar when you run. Both are great options. I gave Waldo 2 memory shards too, by the way. I have to say that mirror is getting very close to being complete, and by the end of the day I returned home with 4 more moonstones. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's already the final day of summer. Nobody would be working, today being a Sunday, which meant everyone was out and about this morning. I think I got to chat with every single person today. I took a step back from adventure today to soak in the final day of summer. I perched up on the pier and fished for a while, in the company of a few townsfolk as they came and went. I did laps of the main island on my glider, letting the warm summer air flap my cape in the wind, and I watched the final hours of the summer sun set below the horizon, as I danced the only way I knew how to, by spamming the warp whistle. The orange hues of fall have taken over the island of Moonstone, and with it comes a new range of crops to collect and forage, which includes apple plums, fuzzballs, squishes, and flag flowers. Most of the day I spent gliding around and exploring, as I sometimes do. I didn't land on many islands because out this far it's all fire and electric islands with high difficulties. But I did manage to harvest 2 new crops and their seeds, plantains, very clever, and electricones. I'll admit the following day, day 58, was pretty similar. The day was spent unveiling more of the map and discovering a bunch of dangerous looking islands, and picking up a few goodies here and there. As you can see, my exploration of these islands has been a worthwhile investment. Just look at how much of the map you can see now. From a past dungeon run, I had a fire resistance potion which I used today. My plan was similar to when I tamed all of those electric spirits for the first time. Combining this potion with the concoctions and crops with the taming attribute on them, I managed to tame a few fire spirits today. And to top it all off, I got to unlock the intermediate Spiritmancer perk, which lets me keep spirits up to level 30. The problem I'm facing at the moment is that in order to progress on the outer islands, I need much higher level spirits. Like, I still can't take this spiraling out of storage. That is something I had in mind when I was transferring the rest of the fire spirits to my barn. While I pondered over a solution, I turned my attention to crop collecting on a nearby island for a while. That night, however, a psychic storm started, so I got to collect the new crops and their seeds that appear under such a storm. And I may or may not have picked on a few lower level spirits. Look at that, it's now day 61. I found myself at the conservatory this morning, selling off seeds to Guyana. I forgot I don't need to sell the regular seeds, but who's to argue with a little extra profit? It was after this that I finally found the solution to all of my problems. The skill reset potion. Consuming this potion allowed me to reconfigure where all of my skill points went, and I was able to use the spirit skill points in favor of the expert spiritmancer perk. I can now keep tamed spirits up to level 40. I did have to go through and spend all of the rest of my skill points, but they for the most part stayed about the same. This meant that I could finally take the spiraling out from Zed's spirit storage, and I retired Hugo for a life of leisure in the barn, in favor of my new fire spirit. In fact, I went after a whole new roster. To accompany spiraling, I acquired an arm bot from a high-level electric island, and the following day I was able to wrangle myself a very high-level emo shroom from an island on the outer ring. I now had my brand new squad of higher leveled spirits, and boy was I feeling good about it. I even got the achievement Elemental, my dear spirit. I should note I also got the achievement Nice somewhere in there. It was for taming 69 spirits. Now that I had my new lineup of spirits, it was time to make use of the gateway resets. What that means is I can gather a bunch of meditate talismans from all of these islands I've discovered so far, and use them to turn my spirits into the ultimate battle unit. Add the perk Fleetfoot for the ability to have a 100% chance to flee a battle, and I had a force to be reckoned with. Now that my Operation Army upgrade was complete, I had some more time for the mundane stuff. Things like picking the yarrow that I had finally grown, and preparing a few things to eventually use in a concoction for my spirits. The mundane suddenly turned into vengeance by the late morning. I took my spirit squad to that dungeon I couldn't quite finish last season, and by God, I did not hold back. Wow, now that was much easier now, wasn't it? After grabbing the Ando tree, I got back home to ash smelted in my furnace, which I used as the last ingredient to start concoction making. I paired the yarrow with a popsa plant, as it will add 2 speed and 1 vitality to the concoction. As for the rest of the day, well, I paired Pharaoh with a Beardini. She was pretty calm about it. I made my own spirit connection device thingy. Basically, it means I don't have to rely on the science center being open to access the spirit storage. And I unlocked my first agriculture skill, the healthy herbologist perk, which unlocks the healing fertilizer recipe. Before leaving the house this morning, I picked up my brewed concoctions before gliding off to the outer islands. I thought I might as well cherry pick a few more gateways to activate. Free talismans are anything but useless in this economy. I was actually on my way back to tackle the dungeon I first tamed my spiraling in, but this time I bought the firepower to fight back. Oh wow, now that is a lot of valuable poop. After the dungeon run yesterday, it was clear my team was up for anything. So why stop the train now when it's running at full speed? Well, this is probably a bit too late to say this, but I do have the Moonstone charm of fire resistance, hence why I'm not taking any damage. But you probably already knew that, right? A significant part of the last dungeon run was getting Waldo's final memory shard, and it was later that night I had the opportunity to give it to him. Ooh, that looks so pretty. Oh, let me just step through it real quick. Oh my god, where am I? What's that big rift looking thingy? Why am I taking damage? How do I get away from this godforsaken place? Wait, somebody help me. Somebody help me. Where am I? I found myself back in the conservatory the following morning. I had a great sleep, thank you for asking. I had a nightmare that I found a massive rift in the space-time continuum. Wait, you're telling me that was real? Well, rips in the fabric of time aside, I sold a couple of Fire Island seeds to Guyana and waddled off to the general store. The next lot of seeds I bought were ghost shroom seeds. Paired with growth fertilizer, I thought these would make for a great concoction. They provide plus 100 HP, and with the islands out there that can only get tougher from here on out, I think it would be smart to have plenty of concoctions at the ready. As for the rest of the day, well, I plundered a dungeon, of course. The 12th of fall marked our favorite workshop running wood shopping person's birthday. I gave Paolo a bedside table of all things, but they were stoked nonetheless. And I mean, I've spent the last 3 days liberating dungeons. Why not make it a 4th? Overnight, I spent the last combat skill I had on the critical hit perk, which gives me a small chance to deal double damage. On day 69, I endeavored to start and finish the Fall Temple, and this is about how it went. Sorry to come in halfway through a montage, but I got a boomerang. By the time the evening had rolled around, I picked up the poison seal at the top of the temple. Waldo left me with some words that, well, made me anxious that all my friends are toxic, and I headed home the champion of the third temple. As I awoke the next morning, I was dropped off a letter with another matchmaker request. Cleo was after a dark spirit, and I'll be the first to say she'll need some patience for that one, because there ain't no way I'm heading out there anytime soon. Instead, it was back to what I do best, that of course being another dungeon run. After ticking off another dungeon like it was on a grocery list, I placed down that warp whistle totem that Waldo had given me all that time ago. I placed it here specifically to get a head start on tomorrow morning for another dungeon. Pretty smart, right? Okay, let me just get out my whistle and go to the goddess statue. Oh, for crying out loud, I mean the totem! The totem! I don't want to talk about it actually, just play the damn footage. Unfortunately, I didn't quite make it all the way on this one because I came across a bark bite with 870 health.
Oh my god.
Since when was that allowed? Brother, my emo shroom is 5 levels higher and you're telling me I have an 1/8 of its health? No way, I'm not doing that today. It wasn't all that bad, I guess, because I unlocked the perk Master Spiritmancer overnight, letting me tame spirits of any level. And the powerful Presence perk. Dungeon bosses start with 20% less health. I spent the morning of day 72 out in the fall breeze chopping down some trees. I needed the wood you see for an east wing upgrade courtesy of our friend Paolo. You do have to admit my home was looking a bit bland, right? It's okay, you can be honest because I agree with you, which is why I spent the next few days adding some gusto to the place through the art of decoration. And look at this, I can make my own custom floors and wallpaper? Oh come on, just roll the montage already. Well, I must say, I love what I've done with the place. It's not exactly finished by any means, but it's a good start. And to top it all off, I started brewing some more ghost shroom concoctions. And I got the propagator perk. I'd also like to say that I got the Craftotron achievement. I made a lot of flooring and wallpaper. By the time I woke up the next morning, it was already day 77. That's right, I spent 5 days decorating. And to be honest, I wasn't even mad about it. However, after those 5 consecutive days cooped up at home, I felt like I needed to get away from it all and go out exploring. I found a few funky looking islands in the process, and even decided to take on the maze I came across a while ago. Luckily, I had the map to reference if I ever felt lost, and I always had my spirits waddling along behind me to keep me company. Awaiting me at the bottom of the maze was another dungeon. I think the devs assumed that it would take players a long time to get here, which was a great assumption to make. It was very true. It didn't take me long to rid the world of another pesky guardian, and that Ando tree was mine for the taking. My morning the next day started over in town. I bought a random crafting recipe from Paolo. I'll be doing this a lot from now on. And Osino gave me another round of family recipes that needed figuring out. I was back to the glider after this. I had a bit of the southwestern part of the map still to explore before I hit the outer ring of islands. And I found a sun-shaped island? There's a joke about flying too close to the sun here. I can just feel it. While I think of one, enjoy another dungeon run. Flying too close to the sun is my ick.
Oh, brother!
Yeah, I'll keep working on it. Similar to yesterday, I had a part of the map to explore before reaching the outer ring of islands. This time it was on the eastern side. I came across the Winter Temple. I have a good habit of coming across these things one season too early. A massive pair of fire islands, and Australia. Wait, Australia? What are you doing here? Check out this glider flying. Ooh, dodge and weave. Up the river. There we go. Oh yeah, smooth as hell. You'll be happy to know I finally got to use my warp whistle totem properly this morning. Not what I intended to use it for, but hey, can't complain. I was back at the dungeon I left early because of that bark bite that had 800 health. Thankfully, it wasn't here anymore, which made for a prime opportunity to knock off another dungeon. Back at the conservatory is where I began the following morning. I noticed I could purchase a plant for free. Afterwards, I made myself an abundance potion so that I'd get more wood for chopping down trees. And I went and chopped down trees, funnily enough. The wood I needed to commission my first greenhouse upgrade from the lovely people at the conservatory. I yearned for more space to grow the best crops. Something that I haven't done in a while was go mining, which is what I did for the whole of day 83. I was still diving through earth mines, which meant spirits down here were a very low level. That poor Dusty had no idea what was coming. I was over the moon! Stone, to see my upgraded greenhouse. That was pretty bad. You will never guess what I did today to commemorate the final day of fall. And I'm being serious here. I went around giving everyone a piece of fiber. And I mean everyone. I was trying to do it for an achievement, but I just couldn't get Waldo to spawn for some reason, so it was kind of pointless. So I guess I just spent the last day of fall playing Ring-a-Ring-a-Rosy with my spirits. Not a bad way to end it, to be fair. Winter has descended upon the island of Moonstone, so to kick things off in the new season, I went around collecting the new forage and crops, just like every season that's come before. This time I didn't limit it to the main island. I went along scrounging up the crops on the Poison Island as well as the Electric Islands, and cultivating their seeds, of course. Unfortunately, I would need an upgraded scythe to cultivate the seeds on the Fire Islands, but for now I sold off the seeds I'd collected so far to the conservatory. It was my wish on day 86 to upgrade my scythe, so I could grab those Fire Island seeds. However, when I arrived in town, it seemed like Farah had pulled the Robin and closed the shop on Tuesday. Never to mind, I had other things to do in the meantime. Things like taming a new whole type of spirit. The ice type spirits were showing up all over the outer islands, and I was keen to tame as many of them as I could. Before I knew it, the night had fallen, and I used a psychic sight storm potion to reveal where a storm was a-brewing. To my dismay, it was hovering over such a small island that no new crops showed up. I'll admit that the next day actually went about the same. I was able to get my scythe upgrade though. This did mean I was able to collect the Fire Island seeds, which I'm sure Ophelia and Gianna were stoked to see. I once again downed a Psychic Storm Sight potion, which led me to the X-shaped island. Fortunately, one of each plant spawned, and I now had the seeds for the gift plant and snowdrop flower. They went straight to the conservatory the morning after, giving me an achievement for propagating 20 seeds, and leaving me with only 2 more seeds to collect for the winter seed quest. A lot of time today was spent gathering materials, such as wood and fiber that I eventually turned into cloth. All of it I crafted together into 5 more Moonstone grass stalls, to which I then exhausted the rest of the day taming ice spirits to fill those very stalls. It's crazy to see how far my spirit barn has come. We only need 5 more dark spirits to fill it up completely, and then there will be valuable poop everywhere! After placing a couple of sprinklers in the greenhouse, I went and got an upgrade for my hoe at the blacksmith, and I dropped into the general store to purchase some snowdrop flower seeds. These flowers, I noticed, have the highest tame attribute value at plus 100. Mix in a little growth fertilizer to speed up the process, and soon enough I'll have a great crop to turn into a taming concoction. In the meantime, I noticed this ominous message pop up when I tried to enter the tavern basement, and I slid around on the frozen ocean hanging over the island. I stayed to pick up crops from another psychic storm, plus I got the tame wizard perk overnight. Turns out I picked the snowdrop flowers yesterday because I'm super impatient and I didn't want to wait for the seeds to grow in the greenhouse. I immediately made a few concoctions and paired them with grumpkins, took a quick nap for a few hours, and before I knew it the concoctions were ready. I had formed a plan to use these taming concoctions to tame my first dark spirit, so I glided all the way out to the outer ring of islands and landed on a dark island. I jumped right into the first fight that I could because I was taking damage, and oh boy did I not last long. I ran through all 6 taming concoctions, and this one dark spirit I was trying to tame did not budge. So unfortunately I had to retreat before I lost the rest of the day to a knockout. I didn't leave empty-handed though. I had managed to collect the seeds of both a black pearl plant and an icicle root. I was going to turn these into the conservatory the following morning, but it was Sunday, so my attention shifted to the winter temple. And over the next couple of days, I took on the final electrified death trap of a temple. With the ultimate temple boss conquered, there was now nothing standing between me and the last seal, the electric seal. For my remarkable efforts, I got the Temple Tamer achievement, and Waldo asked me to do something he had failed to do once before. That was to take the seals through the mirror and place them on their totems to fix the rift. But you see, I didn't really fancy doing that just yet. I had no idea what was waiting there for me, and seeing how powerful powerful those dark spirits were, I was very happy to take my time on that task. Let's be real, I don't think that rift is going anywhere anytime soon. So instead I upgraded the rest of my tools to the greater upgrade, bought a random crafting recipe from Paolo, and set up another round of healing concoctions. On day 93, I was blessed with the most incredible gift. I matched Rowan with a Posho spirit, and in return, I got dancing shoes. Oh my god. This is way better than spamming the warp whistle emote. I'm a dancing machine, look at me. I had one other person to match a spirit to, and that person was Quill. He was after a cuddly fire spirit, and I knew of one cuddly fire spirit in particular. I handed over my very first spirit, Hugo, to Quill. I know he'll take good care of my sheep, just as I've taken good care of it since I got here. Over the next couple of days I sought out the shiny moonstones that lay out there on the outer islands. I got to use my spam the spacebar method to optimize moonstone collection, and it worked. I think I got about like 16 over the 2 days. I used some to upgrade my axe from Ferris. I also spent day 96 fitting in some new furniture I bought from Paolo, and I fished on a distant fire island to catch one of the 3 mythical fish that Tobin asked me to find on like the 3rd day of being here. I surprised myself though because I actually caught the moonstone quality version of the cinderfish. Tobin was very excited to see one for the first time. After getting a moonstone upgrade for my hammer at the smithy, I bought some cooking ingredients from the tavern and started working on some of the mystery recipes. I have to admit, doing these were quite fun. Yeah, I kind of have to guess what the mystery ingredient is based on the description you get given, and when you cook it in the oven and it comes out just right and you get to give it to the person who gave you the recipe, oh, it's just so good. It's such a cool task. It's such a cool task that I ended up continuing it on to day 98. Who cares about a potentially world-ending rift when I can bake family recipes for the townsfolk of Moonstone Island? I managed to get 3 recipes ticked off today, which was not a bad effort. We're now on the second to last day of our adventure through Moonstone Island, and what a better way to kick it off than by picking ghost shrooms in the greenhouse. I then mooched around town yapping to any and every villager I could find. I thought I might as well get a few more friendship points while I was at it. Maybe I'm a baker by day, alchemist by night, because I was back to cooking up a storm in the kitchen and handing out family recipes left, right and center. But before I knew it, it was day 100. A letter in my mailbox from my mother reminded me of how far I've come over these last 100 days. If only there was a spa I could reflect on such a wonderful journey. Oh, wait a minute, there is. It is tradition in my 100 days videos to soak in the spa on my final day to reflect and speculate. And thank goodness Moonstone Island has one too. I have had an absolute blast playing this game so far. To think we were just skygazing on our parents' island just 100 days ago with the hopes of fulfilling our alchemist dream. And here we are now, almost a fully fledged alchemist. I certainly won't forget the friendships and people we've met, the countless dungeons we've liberated, the 4 temples we got to face to collect the 4 seals, all the spirits we've tamed and banished all in the name of alchemy. But it is crazy to think that we still have a whole outer ring of islands to explore, a time-bending rift to patch up, and 45 achievements still left to unlock. But for that, my friends, you will just have to wait ever so patiently for the second part of the Moonstone Island series, where I will be trying to achieve that and a whole lot more. But I think for now I'll just relax here for a little while longer and munch down on a stone fruit I've been saving for this exact moment. So there you have it. That is 100 days of Moonstone Island done and dusted. Unfortunately, this is going to be a 2-part series because there was just so much I wanted to do, and I couldn't really fit it all into one video. So if you want to know when that video drops, then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. And maybe drop a like if you enjoyed the video. I'd appreciate that a lot. If you are still here, I really do appreciate you sticking around. And thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to play it for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox by using my link in the pinned comment or the video description. Remember, new and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. It's available for a limited time only, so make sure not to miss out. And there's not much else to say except you're all wonderful people, so have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.